So one of the things that right-wing commentators have been doing for years now is they've been claiming they're the champions and the heroes of freedom of speech. That, hey, this is an issue we care about. This is not an issue that the left cares about anymore. So, we are the ones who care about freedom of speech and the First Amendment and the Constitution. And so come to us if you care about that issue. But, as I've told you guys all along, it's a total farce. Because their real position is, we want to be the ones who get to censor. We don't want the left to be able to censor. We want to be the ones who get to censor. And we've seen so many examples of this, like, Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy who's a big Trump guy. He was running around talking about free speech nonstop, and then he creates his own social media platform. And in the first interview I see where he talks about that, he goes, well, we got a platform for free speech, and we're going to make sure nobody's going to take the Lord's name in vain. Nobody's going to curse. There's going to be no pornography on there. There's going to be no atheism. He goes through a whole list of shit. So, free speech, except for the things that I care about and those you can't talk about. Okay, so you guys get the gist of it. Well, Ron DeSantis is another one of these guys. He's the big culture warrior, right-wing guy, all about, free speech and owning the libs. Well, look at this. Positively dystopian. Judge blocks Ron DeSantis' Stop Woke law by quoting George Orwell. Okay, so here's what they say. U.S. District Judge Mark Walker on Thursday blocked a portion of Florida's Stop Woke Act because he said that it violates the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The federal judge began his 44-page ruling by quoting George Orwell, quote, "It was a bright cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13, and the powers in charge of Florida's public university system had declared the state has unfettered authority to muzzle its professors in the name of freedom. The law, often touted by Governor Ron DeSantis, forbids the advancement of topics that make anyone feel, quote, guilt, anguish, or other psychological distress." So let's stop and think about that for a second. The thing DeSantis is trying to say here, I'll steel man his position. His position is, hey man, these lefties are indoctrinating our kids in school, and they're teaching propaganda, and they're trying to make us feel bad for our history. So they'll bring up stuff like slavery and Jim Crow and nuking Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the racism in our past and all these problems. They'll bring up all these things, and sometimes they even don't tell the truth in the process. So sometimes you have, what was it, the 1619 Project, which has some factual inaccuracies in it, but they want to teach that. They want to teach the real founding of the U.S. was the 1619 Project. And so I'm going to step in and say, you can't do this kind of propaganda. You need to teach what I think is real history. So that's me kind of steel manning his position. But you see the line here. It says, the law, often touted by DeSantis, forbids the advancement of topics that make anyone feel, quote, guilt, anguish, or other psychological distress. Hold on. But I thought you guys were the facts over feelings people. And now what you're saying quite literally is, no, we need to put feelings over facts. So, in other words, you have to walk on eggshells to make people who are right-wing feel good about themselves and our history. Look, I hate to tell you guys, history is messy as fuck. So there's a little bit of everything in our past. There are things that are objectively terrible. Slavery, Jim Crow, Native American genocide, list goes on and on. There's also good things. I think, generally speaking, the Constitution is great. The First Amendment is wonderful. The Civil Rights Movement was phenomenal. Kind of proud of Lincoln. Kind of proud of FDR, right? The New Deal. So there's a little bit of everything, but you should teach everything. But the perspective of these people is, no, patriotic pro-American education is the only way to go. And this is just like Trump, rolled out towards the end of his time in office, he rolled out this patriotic education thing. And it was the same thing. So they are triggered by criticism of the U.S., especially criticism from a left-wing perspective. And that's what they want to ban. And that was the whole point of this quote-unquote Stop Woke Act, is let's try to weed out the criticisms they think are unfair, but which sometimes are totally fair. Are there little things here and there you could point to that you say, look, this is a left-wing criticism that's not actually based in fact? I'm sure you could find some stuff where I'd say, yeah, that's not quite right. But as a general rule, yes, you want academic freedom and you want an accurate retelling of history, and that includes all of the information, including the negative stuff, which maybe in some instances might make somebody feel guilt or anguish or some sort of psychological distress. Okay. Let's continue. Walker said the legislation held an upside-down view of the First Amendment and compared the law to the Netflix show Stranger Things. Quote, defendants argue that, under this act, professors enjoy academic freedom so long as they express only those viewpoints which the state approves. This is positively dystopian, the judge wrote. Walker's office said the governor planned to appeal the decision. Now look, this is an instance where I'm happy to tell you guys, my intuition on it is that he's not going to win this. Now, they didn't block the entire law. They blocked parts of the law. My guess is whatever the specifics were in this particular court case, the one they appealed to is going to do the same thing. Because for all of their flaws, and there are many flaws, even of the right-wing judges in our court system, one area where they've shockingly been kind of principled is issues of free speech. I remember Justice Antonin Scalia, when he was on the Supreme Court, he ruled in the flag burning case that, like, look, I don't like it. In fact, I hate it, but that doesn't really matter because this is clearly an expression of freedom of speech. It's criticizing the country in a symbolic way. You can't ban it. You just can't ban it. So, and a lot of right-wing judges have the same position, and this is an instance where they say, it doesn't matter what I think of what your law is. The bottom line is, this is unconstitutional. This is against the First Amendment. This is against free speech and academic freedom. And by the way, look, the world is complex and messy. And sometimes there are going to be some professors that, lean right that I might not like. Should they be fired over that? No. If there's a professor that leans left that Ron DeSantis doesn't like, they shouldn't be fired over that either, And a lot of the stuff that DeSantis does cut against the First Amendment. Another great example is the bill which has been dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill, which I forget the exact name, parental rights and something like that. The media called it Don't Say Gay. The actual name of the bill was not Don't Say Gay. It was something else. But in the meat of that bill, one of the things is, look, for kids who are a certain age, basically, like, you can't say anything about sexuality, like, keep it out of the classroom. Now, on its face, that seems perfectly reasonable. I don't want, like, very little kids people talking about sex to very little kids. There's a time and a place for sex ed and things of that nature. But the problem with that is, it was so vague and overreaching, the bill, that there's even a question as to whether or not, like, a gay teacher in Florida could put on their desk a picture of, like, them and their spouse. Because then that might lead to a question from a kid, and then next thing you know, it's like, okay, well, I'm married, but I'm married to somebody of the same sex, and here's how that works, and that might be, no, you're not allowed to do that. So it creates this chilling environment, and it's sort of like this moral panic, this hysteria of, like, oh my God, they're trying to make your kids gay and trans, and we're gonna stop that, bro. And all the legislation that they're putting forth are, it's unconstitutional. It stifles free speech. And so that's where we are. So the Stop Woke law, it's been in part slapped down, and I'm sure there may be some successful challenges to the other law as well, the Don't Say Gay law. And I mean, Ron DeSantis was the guy who signed the bill that made it so that if you run over a protester with your car, maybe they had it coming. They were blocking traffic. What are you going to do? So many things are against the First Amendment that Ron DeSantis has pushed and successfully gotten implemented in many cases. And that flies right in the face of the whole, right-wing ethos for the past however many years. Of, like, we're the free speech guys. We care about facts over feelings. Turns out the exact opposite is true. So there you have it. Ronnie D getting caught speeding. That's definitely a good thing. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.